This week on Quality Digest Live, NASA has a wardrobe crisis of Kardashian proportions.
That's right. Plus, if reality is smacking you in the face, try a little self-leadership. That and more when we come back.
And welcome back to Quality Digest Live for May 26th, 2017. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest Editor-in-Chief, Dirk Ducharme. When I think of Lego...
Legos. What's that song?
Everything is awesome. That's it. I think of the manufacture of more than 2 million Lego elements every hour. Every hour.
Wow.
Okay, and these are done obviously in largely automated plants. We've talked about this before. It is actually pretty awesome. But even awesomer is that after 4 years and nearly $1 billion investment into offshore wind farms, the Lego Group has achieved its ambition to balance 100% of its energy use with energy from renewable sources. Since 2012, the Lego Group has supported the development of more than 160 megawatts of renewable energy. Their latest investment is a 25% stake in the Burbo-Bank Extension wind farm off the coast of Liverpool in the UK. The wind farm, which has officially opened a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, will generate clean power for more than 230,000 British households. Now, that means that the total output from the investments by the Lego Group in renewables now exceeds the energy consumed at all Lego factories, stores, and offices around the world. I mean, that's actually pretty cool. I mean, that's kind of a great goal, and they achieved it. But even more awesomer, if you're a Lego freak anyway, is that the Lego Group has built the largest ever Lego brick wind turbine, a Guinness World Record, and challenged children around the world to create their own renewable energy solutions. We've got a little video here that we'll run, kind of showing the building of that. So it's built with 146,000 Lego bricks. The wind turbine stands 7.5 meters tall. That's what 25 feet or so, and is a tribute to the record 200-meter tall wind turbines of the Burbo-Bank Extension wind farm. These are the largest windmills in operation globally, by the way. So from the summer of 2017, the Lego wind turbine will be located in the Legoland Windsor Resort in the UK. So if you want to see it, you can go there and see it. It's pretty cool. Now, on top of this, to inspire children to engage in environmental issues, the Lego Group has invited hundreds of children from the Liverpool area and more than 1 million children on the Lego Life social media platform to participate in building challenges. And what's the challenge? Well, it's to use their own creativity and imagination to build a renewable energy machine that can capture the wind and provide energy to power their lives. Children all over the world can also join the Lego Planet crew on lego.com, where they can take part in a mission to help protect the planet for future generations and share their views, their own children's views, on the issues that they feel most passionate about. So I think that's pretty cool. I mean, Lego's, from what I understand, pretty fun culture, pretty open culture. Obviously, they take things like, sustainability, environmentalism, and, kind of a global view on responsibility seriously. And it's kind of cool to see stories like that. So,
this is really a story to me about culture. I think you alluded to that, where, when I was a kid, Legos were just a thing, It was like little blocks that you built with, right? Well, they were cool, they were great. I mean, it was very much about imagination, of course, and a kid being creative and fitting it together whatever you wanted, right? I always used to make guns, but whatever, But the thing is, that culture of you can create anything expands, and when you really think about it culturally as a company, you can really do things like making a wind farm, and you can be a sustainable company springing off of what's a really pretty simple, basic idea, and you can go anywhere with it, just like Legos. It's a pretty cool thing if you think about it. And certainly one of my favorite toys. That is one
I had tons of Legos, and this was just when Legos were basically just bricks. They didn't have the cool little kits you can get that have all sorts of fun shapes.
I started to in the 70s when I was a kid. started to have those little kits that you could do, and that was like, wow, you could build like a house, and they give you like the just the bricks you need for that. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So great company there, and good work they're doing. All right, well, also in the news this week, the American Customer Satisfaction Index recently came out with its latest quarterly survey of customer likes and dislikes. This time around, the ACSI looked at the travel and hospitality space sectors that have been very much in the news of late, not maybe necessarily in a good way. Surprisingly, however, there was actually some good news found in the ACSI survey numbers. Now, before we dive into the nuts and bolts of the rankings, however, maybe we can do a little review of the ACSI methodology. The index interviews thousands of customers, and this time around they surveyed more than 8,000 folks, and grades sectors and companies on elements such as price, value, and overall quality. The ACSI then assigns an overall score on a 1 to 100 scale, with 100 being the top grade. So with that in mind, let's consider Airlines, for instance, which had a sector ACSI score of 75, which was a significant increase from 72 the last time around that the airlines were surveyed. As you can see right there, JetBlue with a very good score of 82, and Southwest at 80 led the way. At the other end of the spectrum, Spirit scored not very spirited, 61, and Frontier was not much better at 63. United, which has won so much notoriety for their creative methods of passenger reaccommodation, had a 70, which was the low score for the legacy carriers.
And I believe the survey came out, it was done before
that all came around.
Before all that came around,
which is good to know, because the survey actually ran from last spring until the very early part of this spring, so keep that in mind as well. The hotel industry showed an aggregate score of 74, up from 72. Of course, the sector is broken down into luxury, mid-scale, and economy brands, and it's no surprise that the most expensive properties tended to have the highest ratings. For instance, as you can see right there, JW Marriott checked in at an impressive 85, while Super 8 had a score of 63 at the bottom of the scale. Wyndham actually had both the top-rated mid-scale property, which was the Baymont Inn & Suites at 76, and the leading economy brand, Days Inn, at 67.
I noticed they didn't have Quality Digest's favorite hotel there, which is the Motel 5.5.
Yes, they did. They did. It got a score of 1.
Yeah, okay. Those are the hotels we stay at.
I think you were the only one who answered that survey of the 8,000. Finally, this time around, the ACSI looked at travel websites, which held steady with an overall score of 79. Expedia was the top-ranked site with a score of 80, while Travelocity and Priceline pulled up the rear with scores of 77, respectively. Clearly, there's not much brand differentiation among consumers within this category. As you can see, I mean, 80 to 77 is really not a very big spread. The surveys making up this ACSI report, as we mentioned, were collected between April 18th, 2016 and March 19th, 2017. So again, as you mentioned, it was kind of culminated before a lot of the stuff that happened with the airlines.
Right, exactly.
And for more information, you can visit online at www.theacsi, that's THEACSI.org.
Right.
So check that out. Good organization. They always praise a lot of good service.
We get a lot of stuff from them. And they're constant. It's nice because they cover a lot of the. It's all consumer oriented. So they cover consumer goods as well as services. I mean, they cover banking, financial,
everything,
travel, pretty much everything. There's always an ACSI report coming out, and we do typically cover them. So.
We do. We cover them on the show a lot too, and you can check out again. TheACSI.org is a really good place to go if you're interested in how various brands are doing.
Yeah, and obviously we run overviews. So if you want a lot more information, it is really interesting actually to go out there and deep dive because they give you a lot more data, a lot more in-depth data and charts and stuff than we do here on the show. So it's worth going. If you're interested in any of these, it's really fascinating reading, particularly if you're like maybe somebody who travels a lot and you want to see kind of the full ratings. Your hotel that you use is probably listed in there somewhere.
Yeah, I bet.
All right. So have you ever had this happen, Mike?
No.
Well, I have. So you open up your closet and it's nothing but white clothes, and it's
what? Look at you right now. You have no white clothes.
I know, but I had to find these. And the problem with white clothes is after Labor Day you can't wear them.
I know, it's terrible.
Well, imagine you're an astronaut.
Oh my gosh!
You open up your closet. It's like your own choices. It's nothing but white, right? I mean, well, what are you going to do?
And worse, you don't have the helmet. That's really bad.
I know that matches. And worse, your spacesuits are 40 years old. And worse, NASA is years from being able to dress you up in a new suit.
That's so 1970.
It is, literally. I mean, get this. I didn't know this. It was really interesting. 18 spacesuits were made for the International Space Station environment. They were developed 40 years ago, and have outlived their projected 15-year lifespan. They're 25 years overdue. Some haven't survived the wear and tear, so the agency is down to 11 out of the 18 of the functional suits, and 4 of those are kept on the space station. So can you imagine wearing something that is 25 years beyond its life expectancy, and you're going to wear it in space? Yeah, put on this. Yeah, the suit should have been retired 25 years ago, but just go through the airlock out there into space. I'm sure it'll be fine. How bad can it be?
Jimmy Carter said it was fine.
It was fine. Come on. And the other thing about those suits is they make your butt look so fat.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's
well,
awful.
unfortunately, they can't hear you scream in space, so it's like, oh my God.
See, now we need that rum shot. And we mentioned this again last time.
Oh, man. Okay, well, there is a reason for the spacesuit shortage, and it's kind of a complicated tale, according to Quality Digest Taran March, author of the article, Nothing to Wear in Space? The problem with the spacesuits involves several things. One of them is lead time. You need lots of it. Breakthroughs in material science, simulations, a lot of brainy bickering, right? And a lot of money, a whole lot of money. Not all of this last the money spent in a way that meets with NASA's Office of Inspector General's approval. There's a couple of problems facing NASA when it comes to spacesuits. One is that NASA hasn't kept sufficient track of several spacesuit design projects. The result is some $200 million spent in the past 10 years with not a whole lot to show for it. There are 3 separate design projects on the table at the moment. One is the Constellation spacesuit at about $136 million. The Advanced Spacesuit Project at $51 million. And the Orion Crew Survival System at $12 million. Now, and that's total costs on these spent so far. Now, the OIG, the Office of the Inspector General, weighed in heavily on the Constellation venture, and you might ask why. Well, in typical bureaucratic understatement ease, the OIG said that we question NASA's decision to continue funding a contract associated with the Constellation program after cancellation of that program. Yeah, you can kind of, why are you guys still working on this thing that was canceled? It's kind of like, continuing research and development on, leisure suits or Crocs.
Somebody's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it. Okay, that aside, the second problem, and I think this, the other one is usual budget stuff that, you hear about in government all the time. The real issue really for NASA is that they have a problem when it comes to designing for the next environment. What is the next environment going to be? Is it going to be Mars? Is it going to be the moon? Well, it turns out at this point in time anyway, it's going to be both, most likely. NASA has decided to send a crew around the moon in 2021, begin building a human outpost near the moon, or on the moon, or near the moon, on the moon, in the 2020s, and then send a mission to Mars once the outpost has been completed and lived in for a while. New suits are going to be required for each venture, but they have to be tested. And the International Space Station has been a good platform for that, but it's going away in 2024. Right. So I got to thinking about this. I mean, what a unique design challenge that NASA has. I mean, when you're trying to design something and you aren't really sure where it's going to be used, you need a place to test it, and in an environment that isn't very easy to replicate. And on top of all this, you have shifting budgets and shifting ideas of where space exploration should go next. And this is constantly, every year you say, well, we're thinking of this, and then there'll be budget changes, and well, we've had to scale back, so now we're thinking about this. Oh, now we have a good budget. Oh, now we're thinking, and the designers are going, well, what in the heck am I doing? I mean, can you imagine just a regular manufacturing company? Can you imagine even a high-tech one saddled with those kind of open-ended questions and trying to design?
And then you have administrations change too, and you have administrations change maybe every 4 or 8 years, and then in terms of which parties in place, and those parties to determine budgetary allocations. One of the hidden, and the small aside here, historically a small aside here, was one of the hidden benefits of the Apollo program. First the Mercury program, then the Gemini. I guess it was Gemini, Mercury, and then Apollo. Was that the fact that Democrats
Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo.
Mercury Gemini Apollo, yes, was the fact that Democrats were pretty much in office almost all that time.
Right.
You know, it was Kennedy, and then it was Johnson, and then it was Nixon at the end, and it was Eisenhower for a little bit before that. But I mean, it was mostly Democrats. So when Kennedy said we're going to go to the moon and return man before 1970,
there was a budget.
Well, and LBJ was still a Democrat, was in office, and they committed to it. And and now, if there had been a Republican in office in '64. Would we have gone to the moon? Or would that Republican, maybe Gary Goldwater, had said, no, we're going to pull the plug on this and we're not going to go to the moon. We don't need to. There's no payback for it.
Right.
Interesting kind of questions, but the fact is administrations do matter in terms of what the budgetary
and meanwhile, you've got these guys who've got to design a spacesuit. And
they're not thinking in terms of 4 or 8 years.
No, they're just thinking, like, so what kind of environment is this going to work in?
Well, and it's decades out. I mean, like you say, 2020s, 2030 for Mars. I mean, that's a long period of time.
That's a long period of time.
In political
sense. And if you
sense.
start designing for that environment, then the plug gets pulled. Well, now is this knowledge that we've learned on designing this, is it transferable to a different environment? Is it money just down the tube like the Constellation project?
Right.
I don't know.
Interesting questions. Well, I mean, that's. I mean, I guess that NASA is going to be continuing to look at the question, and we'll continue to
continue spending money on it.
We'll report on it as it happens. All right, thanks, Dirk. All right, well, there's a lot of topics that we discuss of discussion here that you'll see in Quality Digest, and a lot of those things focus on, I guess, what you could call big Q quality. What I'm calling big Q quality. Those are things like tested measurements, statistical analysis, and registration services for the various standards. Those things spring to mind when I think of big Q quality, right? Hard cost quality. Then there's what could be referred to maybe as more of the little Q quality, and these articles have to do with things like the core competencies around management, culture, and fulfilling the organization's mission and vision. Developing these softer skills often means the difference between an organization that merely survives versus one that really thrives. What to Do When Reality Smacks You in the Face by author and trainer Susan Fowler falls squarely into this latter category. The article appeared in Tuesday's issue of Quality Digest. You can see it right there. In the piece, Fowler relates a conundrum that she encountered earlier in her career. And the specifics really aren't that important, really, in terms of what happened. Suffice it to say that she and her boss weren't really seeing eye to eye, and the issue was that Fowler had a more ambitious view of a project than the company's CEO, and that caused her to take a hard look at where she was and where she wanted to go within the context of this company. Susan, the boss, had said, your problem is you keep creating 9-ton elephants for 2-ton cages. In other words, she always was kind of going past the scope of what the boss wanted her to do. She was coming up with these very ambitious programs and projects and probably ways to spend money. And the boss was like, well, hold on a second. I mean, we don't necessarily want to go that far. We don't want a 9-ton elephant. We just want to fit in this little 2-ton cage that we have set up for the project. Now, this isn't an uncommon issue, and it tends to pop up in organizations with overlapping and sometimes competing goals. Like I say, it's not uncommon. Lots of us have a culture like this in which, let's say the desire to come up with breakthrough innovations might compete with the need to control risk, especially as it might pertain to potential scope and or budget creep. Just like I'm saying, I mean, the CEO, obviously, as a CEO, is concerned about, well, can we fit this project you want to do, which is really ambitious, into our budget? Do we know we have customers for it? Yada, yada, yada. And she's just saying, no, this is cool, we should do it, right? That's a that's a misalignment. Fowler is a proponent of a technique she refers to as self-leadership. And that's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a personal sense of accountability to oneself to take responsibility for your own career success. And in that vein, Fowler presents 3 business realities that force people into false and wasteful choices. She also identifies the self-leadership tactics that she chose to employ in overcoming them. And again, this kind of stemmed from that story she told of this misalignment she had with her boss, with the CEO, about the project she wanted to do versus what they could do. So in thinking about that, she came up with these misalignments, these wasteful things that are really false choices as well, and what she recommends for self-leadership techniques to help overcome them. Well, the first of these is what she refers to as wasted creative energy, which happens when you're caught between your own desire for autonomy and the company's need for you to be a good little follower, right? I mean, in this situation, Fowler found herself with three choices as she defined them. She could first continue with her own personal sense of mission, regardless of the broader company initiatives. She could work as best she could within the limits of the company, or she could kind of do both by following her own star while gently nudging the company toward a more expansive vision of what it could be. As Fowler writes, self-leaders also have the ultimate choice of walking away. So, what she's saying there is that, you need to understand what you can do, what the limits are, work the best you can within it. And if you really just can't, well, you need to take ownership of your career, and maybe you need to find a different company. That's good advice. The second waste that she talks about here is wasted emotional energy. And this occurs when you feel the need to embrace your own personal meaning through work, yet you also recognize that the organization has a collective goal and goals that often take precedence over any individual desires. Organizations, by their nature, can never meet everyone's needs. Not for all their customers, and certainly not for all their employees, right? I mean, they just can't do it. Therefore, Fowler recommends that self-leaders focus on seeking and deriving meaning from their own work while simultaneously rising above pure self-interest by contributing to the common good. Kind of a, I guess you call it kind of a duality of mind there.
Right.
You're focused on what you can do, what you want to do, what you need to do, and also look at the common good for the company, for the employees, for your customers certainly, and try to do both those things, and you'll find more alignment in what you are.
This actually ties back to an article that we covered a while ago, which was discovering what makes you tick.
Right.
If you understand what makes you tick, then you can see, okay, then how do I satisfy that need within the context of my job? I think we gave the example of, I like working on restoring old cars, right? Well, it isn't about restoring old cars. It's about the discovery process. It's about using tools. It's about everything that goes into restoring a car. So now then, can I take those ideas that I know about myself and plug them back into my work to make my work more interesting?
And also have a connection with what the organization needs. This is exactly what she's saying there. And the third of these is really important too. That's wasted productive energy, which comes about through the disconnect between your values and those of the organization, just what Dirk was talking about. And of course, the organization are usually tied to, guess what, profits, right? And Fowler advises that it's easiest to stand up for your values when you're clear about what they are. Self-leaders take responsibility to align their values to projects that they can get behind and which also have a real payoff for the organization. Again, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying, is that you want to be able to, yes, do what you want to do, be who you are, but also understand how that fits with what the organization needs too. It's really important. See, I mean, it's all about culture and values. Those are the two axes that she's talking about here. And they don't have to compete, but many times they do. And if they are not in alignment, you need to make sure you get them in alignment. And it's your responsibility. And again, these are, I mean, I guess you can consider these, again, little Q topics within quality, but they really have a very big effect on how well the organization can fulfill its mission. And on a personal level, I think self-leadership techniques are really invaluable for navigating your way through what the company needs while still being you in the workplace. And you've said, Dirk, many times, and I always agree with it when you said it, that you don't leave your values at the door when you come to work. And in thinking about that and thinking about the story a little bit, I realized that that's really exactly what she's saying here, is that the company has cultures, the company has values, the company has goals and motivations. So do you, and you have values that are intrinsic to who you are and what makes you you. You got to make those things align. If you can't, again, you have the ultimate option of walking away, and you may need to. I mean, sometimes you can't. You have 3 kids in school, and and your wife's not working, your husband's not working, or whatever. You need the health insurance in this case. But you need to find a way to make it work for yourself, because if you don't, you're not going to not just be unhappy, you're also not really going to be a good worker. You're not going to be the person that company needs you to be and doing what the company needs you to do for the company to be successful.
Which is why I think it's also important, the flip side of this, right, is managers got to realize that their employees have to be involved in their work. I mean, emotionally involved, kind of intrinsically involved in what they're doing. And so it's kind of also, in a sense, up to managers to understand what makes their employees tick and to try to work with them to feed those needs, because they're going to be more productive employees. So I mean, it's to the company's best interest not to just shovel jobs at people that maybe they aren't matched for.
Right.
You know, there is a certain amount of matching, I think, that has to go on until finally that employee is plugged in or given the resources or whatever it is that they feel part of the work that they're doing, and they feel an emotional investment in the work they're doing as much as possible. And not always possible, but
it's not always possible. But you're gonna. I mean, if you want to make sure that you're doing little Q quality right, you, as a manager especially, you've got to do that. It's your responsibility to try to understand as best you can who your people are and what they are best at and what turns them on to a certain extent, so you can get the best out of them. And again, you can serve your customers and your organization better.
Yep.
Good article there by Susan Fowler. Check that one out. Again, all the articles we're covering on today's show are below the player page right down there. Okay, we got 5 minutes, Dirk. Time for our off script, and I have one for you this time. Okay. And where is it? You know, we write these things down because I don't want Dirk to know what I'm going to be talking to him about. So we write this on the little paper script, so so I can just kind of read it off to him. This is where I just throw Dirk something. He has no idea what I'm going to be covering. But okay, Dirk. Monday is Labor Day. I'm sorry, Monday is Memorial Day. I always get those two confused. Labor Day, Memorial.
I'm not wearing white.
That's right. So Memorial Day Monday, it's a traditional start of the summer, and for many of us, you know, it's more than just beaches and barbecues. You know, there's a lot of things going on in the industry in the summer too. Trade shows, for instance, are a good example. Now I'm going to be at Hexagon Live next month. We're both going to be at CMSC in July. Some of you recently just got back, maybe from Control in Germany, in Stuttgart, last month. So this is the time when this stuff is happening. So trade shows are, of course, a big investment of time and energy for those involved and for those that exhibit and those of you that attend. So, Dirk, you know, you've been to a lot of these events in your, 70 or 80 years in the industry. Sorry. So the question is, you know, my question to you, the off script, is what do you see as ways in which attendees can get really the most mileage out of these shows? You know, what would you recommend that people do if they want to go to a show like IMTS next year or CMSC in July? What would you recommend would be good things to do going in so that you can compare and you can understand what you're seeing and ask good questions? I mean, what, you know, again, you have a technical mind, so what would you recommend?
I think number one, particularly if you're, you know, not a reporter, you're just working in industry.
Exactly.
Is what are the you know, the technologies or the solutions that are of most interest to you. First of all, you got to identify what am I looking for? Is there a current need that I have right now? I need to take this type of measurement, or I wish there was something that would do this, or is there a service that can provide me that? Then go through. Every trade show has got an exhibitor list. Go through that exhibitor list. There's also usually a write-up, and find the ones that are a closest match for what you think you're looking for. Hit those right off the bat, because those are going to answer your questions, right? I mean, if you're going to go to the trade show, you want to get something out of it. You don't want to just blindly walk the show. So initially, know what it is you're looking for and who are the most likely vendors. Go to them first. Get your questions out of the way, and then if you have time left over, then just kind of wander and just kind of absorb, because you'll start seeing vendors that are offering things that you didn't even know existed. I mean, you know, a technology that you didn't know existed, or a service you didn't know existed. So first priority, hit those vendors first that you know are most likely to provide you a solution, and then walk the entire show, including parts of the show that maybe, you know, maybe you're a quality control guy. Let's say you're going to IMTS. IMTS has all sorts of technology, and maybe you're a quality control guy. Get out of the quality pavilion and go walk one of the other pavilions just to see what's there, because there may be something that strikes you that you just never thought of that somehow does tie into what you're doing.
You mentioned something that I think is really important, asking questions. And I found this at trade shows where I'll walk along the booths and I'll see attendees that are there that are looking at things. And somebody will say to them, hey, can I answer any questions? They'll say no. No. And I always think, no, I think that there's a fear there that you're going to get sold to, and maybe you will to a certain extent.
It is a trade show.
But I mean, the people that are at these trade shows are generally subject matter experts on that particular field. And especially at CMSC, I can tell you this for sure. You're going to get a lot of really good information, and a lot of it's going to be agnostic. It's not going to be about their industry necessarily or their product. You're just going to get your answers, your questions answered. So I think I would encourage people to do what you said. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't feel like you're going to walk up to a booth and get sold, and you're not going to be able to get away because some sales guy's going to buttonhole you. I mean, it might happen, but you're going to get your answer, your question.
And the other thing is don't be afraid to ask them to compare their product to a competitor.
Sure.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. So, you walk up and you're talking to company X, and just say, I just left company Y's booth. It looks like they make the same thing. Why is yours better? They got to be prepared to answer that question. They got it. What's their selling point? What is it they have to offer on their product that their competitors don't? And is that something that's important to you?
And redirect. Say, hey, well, these are the features. What are your features that compare with that? Really try to go apples to apples if you can. Yeah. Because there are salespeople there too, and they're going to obviously try to put the best spin on their particular product. But dig a little bit. I mean, you have an opportunity there to deal with people that are generally pretty high level engineers.
And don't be afraid to be stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times I'll just walk up to a booth. I'm not familiar with the product, and I'll just simply ask them, "What's it do?"
What is this? What does it do?
What's it do?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like such a dumb question, but I mean that gives them carte blanche. They don't start talking to you as if you have some preconceived notion of the technology.
Right.
They tend to dumb down. The salesperson will tend to dumb down the explanation because you've basically just said, I have no idea what this product is. So that forces them to start from the beginning, which sometimes gives you a much more understandable explanation than if you come in acting all like, I know everything that this product's about, and then they're going to start talking technicalese at you, which maybe you will understand and maybe you won't. Yeah. If you come in completely stupid and act stupid, which is sometimes really hard to do, you're going to get the most basic explanation, which sometimes is the most valuable one.
Beginner's mind.
Beginner's mind. Exactly.
Keep going
Beginner's
back
mind.
to,
Exactly.
Well, good job, Dirk.
Yep.
And hey, like I say, it is trade show season coming up here. It's getting hot here in Northern California, so that means it's summertime.
Time to leave.
So a lot of you will be on the road.
Park City, Utah.
Well, that's right, Park City, Utah. I'm going to be in Vegas at Hexagon Live next month too, and hopefully we'll see you on the road out there in the coming weeks and months. And think about that. I think it's good advice, Rick. Think about how you want to approach those trade shows.
All those trade shows have got a website, and they almost always, 99.9% of the time, show their vendors. Look them up.
That's it.
All right. So that is the end of our show for today. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Memorial Day weekend, so I'm sure almost all of you have that off. So have an awesome 3-day weekend coming up.
Yep.
All right, and we will see you next week.
Have a great weekend.
So long.
Bye.